I want to say welcome to everybody. We're going to get underway here, and it's great to have so many of you here with us today. We'll be covering all of the latest happenings for New York City by Design. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Melissa Black. I'm the Executive Director of NYC by Design, and I'm so pleased to be here today with my staff, my steering committee, and design friends from right across the city who through their passion, commitment and collaboration have brought together a fantastic set of programs right across the city for Design Days, under circumstances that certainly demanded a lot of resourcefulness and invention. We're so pleased to be presenting this program to you today, and it truly highlights the depth, breadth, resilience and immense creative capacity of New York City's design community. But before I dive into the details, because I haven't met some of you yet, please give me a moment to give you some insights into my background. I've worked in and amongst New York City's design and cultural nonprofit community for the last 15 years in New York City. And most recently, I've led management roles with the Architecture and Design Curatorial Department at the Guggenheim Museum and at Van Allen Institute, which is a 125-year-old design nonprofit also in New York City. And in those roles, I've really been able to pursue my passion for design and its possibilities. At the Guggenheim, my international projects explored design and its ability to impact communities and cities for the better, and to imagine a brighter and better future for all. And at Van Allen Institute, we led design-led interdisciplinary collaborations that proactively sought to make change on social, environmental, and economic issues that were impacting society and improve quality of life in all our communities. So you could say that design and its transformative capacities has been my North Star across these last years of my career path, and it's this star that I hope will continue to guide NYC by Design as we take the organisation and its program forward. Turning back to NYC by Design, you all know quite a bit already about the organisation, but let me remind you of some recent news. So at the end of 2020, we acquired our independent status as a not-for-profit corporation in New York, and recently were recognised federally for a tax-exempt 501c3 status or charitable organisation at the federal level. And what this means for us right now is very exciting. It means we're an independent public charity, and we have a mission that's committed to empowering and promoting New York City's diverse creative community. This shift to nonprofit and charitable status was achieved under the excellent guidance of many people who have been involved with NYC by Design for many years, and thanks to you all. But in particular, a thanks to NYCxDESIGN, SANDOW Design Group, the steering committee and staff members Valerie Hoffman and Maya Bayram for getting us to this very exciting point in the organisation's trajectory. We're so excited as this newly minted nonprofit to take forward nearly a decade of work now that's occurred under the NYC by Design umbrella. And as a mission-driven nonprofit, we're now going to be doing year-round programming where we seek to do three things. First, we seek to celebrate, educate about, and give international and national attention to spotlight New York's expansive design community. Secondly, we'll be seeking to bring more and equitable opportunities to New York City's design sector. And thirdly, we hope to inspire the city's young adults to become the city's designers of tomorrow. And I particularly want to mention that we represent New York City's design community in its broadest sense. So this means all of the design professions across architecture, landscape design, interior design, digital product, data and tech design, so every design discipline, fashion that you can imagine, along with our design-leaning enterprises in the city. So this is all your makers, manufacturers and suppliers, along with our design-leaning cultural and academic institutions, design districts, events and businesses. And it's through this community and the power of this collective community and NYC by Design that we hope to move this community towards the city's recovery and renewal and towards enduring and transformative social change. And that brings me to the main subject of today, which is Design Days. And so Design Days is 6 days of inspiring design programming that will take place from May 13 to 18 in the city. It's filled with engaging, safely organised, virtual, hybrid, and some in-person events. And it represents the collective efforts of people and organisations, designers and businesses right across the 5 boroughs of New York City. As our city continues to rebuild and re-emerge, Design Days is an early opportunity for New York City's design community to come together once again, celebrate accomplishments, share new ideas, and find new inspiration. In total, we're excited to say that there are 110 events happening as part of the Design Days program in the coming days. And it's really promising to see this momentum and movement in the city back towards being able to hold COVID-safe in-person events and design happenings in the city. Our community has truly been apart for too long, and the robustness and enthusiasm we'll see in this Design Days program really shows our collective excitement at being able to come back together and celebrate all things design. Right now, I'll hand over to the NYC by Design Program Director, Val Hoffman. She'll be giving you more details of the Design Days programs and some highlights that you'll see in the coming days. Thank you so much again all for joining us. We're delighted to have you here, and over to you, Val.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. As Alyssa mentioned, I'm Valerie Hoffman, Program Director for NYC by Design, and I'm happy to share more details today about Design Days, how to navigate the program, and some event highlights. The NYC by Design team, including Alyssa, myself, and Maya, work to conceive an event series that empowers and supports the city's entire design ecosystem. So let's take a look at how to best navigate Design Days. We encourage attendees to explore through 2 main ways: browse events and self-guided journeys. First, browse events. Explore events by 6 core design disciplines that also theme each day of the program: architecture, graphics and branding, outdoors, interior design, product design, and digital and technology. Tomorrow, the first day of Design Days, will be highlighting architecture. The day, sponsored by Eventscape, features a great lineup of events either launching then or exclusively happening for Architecture Day. Exhibitions at Highline 9, Arts Gowanus Spring Exhibition, Hudson Yards Architecture Tour, a virtual tour of Brooklyn Navy Yard's most recent adaptive reuse projects, a lighting design online masterclass with David Gatam by Lightfair, Architects Newspaper's Screen Time virtual talk, AAA New York's virtual Building of the Day tour at Jones Beach Energy and Nature Center, and Architecture and Design Film Festival's virtual cinema, just to name a few. Next up will be Graphics and Branding Day on the 14th, Outdoors Day on Saturday the 15th, and Interiors Day on Sunday, May 16th. Some events to attend over the weekend include Windows Open to the Sky in Soho Design District and Madison Avenue by Design Pavilion and Arts Thread, Inside Out in the Garden by Kin & Company, The Broom Show at Cooler Gallery, and Design Days at 200 Lex. Monday, May 17th, is dedicated to product design, co-sponsored by the Brooklyn Navy Yard and Smart Design. Tune into Close Up by ICFF and Wanted Design Manhattan, the NYC by Design Awards presented by Interior Design, the NYC by Design Student Showcase Night featuring a virtual presentation of projects of graduating students from FIT, Parsons, Pratt, SVA, and the Cooper Union, and Innovating Today for Tomorrow, a talk hosted by Smart Design and the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Closing out Design Days on Tuesday, May 18th, we'll highlight digital and technology design. The day is sponsored by Material Bank and will feature events by Tea Leaves, Frog Design, IFDM, and more. Other events happening across the 6 days include Wanted Design's online international school showcase, Nordic Design Diplomacy in New York, the Ad Art Show, Footprint by Harlem 2020, Poster House exhibitions, New York City Jewelry Week conversations, and Kusama at the New York Botanical Garden. Each day, NYC by Design's Executive Director, Alyssa Black, will engage in a thematic, inspiring conversation with leaders like Suchi Reddy of Ready Made, Signa Nielsen of MNLA, Clayton Banks of Silicon Harlem, Satish Rao of New Lab, and more. Join in to hear about how architecture supports community, graphic design can inspire change, digital and tech are paving the way forward, and more compelling design topics. Full lineup for the Design Leaders Conversation Series and where to watch can be found on nycbydesign.org. NYC by Design will also add to the schedule of events with 2 activities focused on student and emerging design work. For the first time, NYC by Design will expand on the mission of the Student Showcase Night by hosting an online gallery of additional student projects. The Student Spotlight features nearly 50 end-of-year design projects of graduating NYC students from Cooper Union, FIT, Parsons Pratt, and SVA. A few highlights include Social Distance Chaps by Pratt Industrial Design student Ali Gakova, Being by Parsons Product Design students Sungjik Kim and Carly Bennett, Cuddle Couples Phone Charger by SVA student Crystal Lowe, Autonomous by FIT Photography student Angel Flores, and Wild Visions by Cooper Union Architecture student Maren Spire. You will also find a selection of the products from the Student Spotlight on Link NYC screens across NYC throughout the month of May. Be sure to look out for them on the street and scan the QR code to explore all student projects in the online gallery. And be sure to stop by the shops and restaurants at Hudson Yards this week to visit our Emerging Designer Residency program in partnership with ArtsThread. The residency, which started on April 1 and runs through June, features 4 recent graduates from FIT, Parsons, and SVA. The highly visible storefront in Hudson Yards has been transformed into a pop-up studio where they're spending 13 weeks working on their impressive portfolios and showcasing finished products. Brought to life in a museum-like setup, the public is invited to view the design process in action as the designers in residence, Lenny Botan, Yishuan Soong, Shin Min, and Lizzie Itzkowitz create one-of-a-kind products live in the space. The projects range in medium. Lenny is developing a rug making practice inspired by his fun and colorful paintings. Yishuan Soong is producing lamps with a faux flower making system using agar, food waste, and 3D molds. Lizzie is showcasing a pop-up silkscreen lab and shows her versatility of cartooning and patterning. And Shin Min is creating a series of 100 teacups using a variety of ceramic techniques, including wheel, hand building, and slip casting. We'll be at the space tomorrow from 12 to 4 p.m. Please reach out if you would like to come by and learn more about the program and speak with the designers in residence. If you can't make it tomorrow, but would still like to schedule a time to come by before the residency ends, just let us know. Now, another way to experience Design Days is to explore NYC by Design's newest platform, Self-Guided Journeys. We're so excited to unveil this program for the first time. Whether you live in the 5 boroughs or are 5,000 miles away, we've compiled an opportunity for everyone to experience NYC's design scene. Custom illustrations combined with photography and video bring you on a borough-wide journey through the South Bronx, Soho and Tribeca, Long Island City, Southwest Brooklyn, and St. George. Read about the unique scene of design in each of these neighborhoods and watch interviews with some of the designers behind the studios, workshops, and institutions and creative spaces. A couple of people and places that you'll encounter on these design journeys. J.M. Szymanski Studio in Mott Haven, making high-end furniture with a local Bronx supply chain. Kenny Greenberg of Krypton Neon, a longtime member of the Long Island City design community who has had a front row seat to watch the area's transformation. Maker Park in St. George, Staten Island is a design gift to the public by Makerspace. Matthew Day Jackson and Laura Seymour Studio in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And Studio Zong in Soho, that's not only home to the design firm's office, but also Shop Zong, their street-facing retail store. Explore these creative neighborhoods from the comfort of your home or visit select locations on each journey by using our Google Maps guide. And be sure to tune into our In the Neighborhood Talk series for more in-depth discussion on each of the highlighted areas. Hosted by myself and 2 guest hosts, Wendy Goodman and Diana Buds of Curbed. The full series lineup can be found on nycbydesign.org and it will be broadcasted daily on DesignTV by SANDOW. Now, as a preview to the content that you can find on this platform, here's a brief video showcasing NYC's diverse design community and why our city is such a fabulous place for the design industry and creativity at large.
The activity of other creative people like doing their thing and trying to like make it happen, like that's home for me.
We made it our duty to represent our people the right way.
It's really about the diversity, it's really about the layers of history.
I really appreciate this location, so many different cultures and so many different backgrounds.
It's a really wide open, wacky range of individuals.
There's such a cross-section of artists and designers and performers.
It's hard not to be inspired by the architecture you're given as the basis of a lot of your design. Amazingly interesting New York bones that only could happen in New York.
Design in New York City in one word: persistent.
Vibrant.
Forward.
Eclectic.
Fearless.
Imagination.
Bold.
Cutting edge.
Exciting.
Fascinating.
Progressive.
Matrix.
Stimulating. Resilient.
True.
It's what it is. It is only in New York City, so you already know. Real.
So as you can all hopefully have seen, some pretty fantastic programs lined up there. I wanted to give some shout outs and thank yous to all of those who have made this fantastic set of Design Days programs possible. First of all, thanks to our steering committee and staff and all of the programs and participants in the Design Days programs, which are taking place right across the 5 boroughs of New York City. I also wanted to say thank you to our Design Day sponsors. Eventscape is the sponsor of Architecture Day on May 13. We have Smart Design and the Brooklyn Navy Yard sponsoring Product Day on May 17, and Material Bank as sponsor of Digital and Technology Day on May 18. I'd also like to thank NYCEDC and SANDOW Design Group, who are key multi-year sponsors of and supporters of NYC by Design, and also Caesarstone, which is a 2021 presenting sponsor. And with that, it's time for me to talk about a really exciting new program of NYC by Design called Impact by Design. This is a new program in partnership with Caesarstone that showcases how design can enhance public space and foster engagement throughout the city. Public space is one of New York City's most important assets, and how we create, design, and imagine these areas within the city and where people can come together will influence this for generations to come. In collaboration with the Design Trust for Public Space, NYC by Design invited designers to submit proposals for public installations that introduce new opportunities for safe gathering in places across the city and using Caesarstone courts as the primary material for those installations. Through a juried competition process, we have selected 2 winners, which you'll hear about shortly, and they'll have their designs fabricated and installed in one of 2 historic districts in New York City, one in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and one in downtown Manhattan, which are both city centers for the arts and commerce. These design installations will create inspiring spaces with beautiful and durable materials that will allow people to enjoy their surroundings and will help bring people together and reconnect when we're out in public space, starting again in the summer, and these installations will go in the fall. The selected designers will be awarded $10,000 each, and they'll work with us, NYC by Design, across the summer, with Caesarstone, with the Design Trust for Public Space, the Dumbo Improvement District, and Downtown Alliance, and we'll bring these winning designs to life across the next 5 months. The installations will be unveiled in the fall and further explored and highlighted through design programming and a documentary video that highlights the project from inception to completion. And with that, I would like to introduce Elizabeth Margulies, VP of Marketing for Caesarstone North America. She'll say a few words about the program and announce the Impact by Design winners. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. As she said, I am Elizabeth Margulies, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for North America and Latin America at Caesarstone. We're so honored to be a longstanding partner of New York City by Design to help further their mission of raising the profile of the city's design community as it aligns so closely with our own commitment to the industry. Caesarstone is dedicated to supporting architects and designers because we recognize the important work that you do day in and day out to create spaces that aren't just practical, but are also inspirational. And our products aim to do the same thing, serving as practical, but also inspirational surfaces inside and out of our spaces. Like our commitment to designers, Caesarstone also prioritizes understanding and participating in industry trends, which encourages us to push our materials and adapt our products to what the architects, designers, and your clients want and need. This couldn't be more true than with our outdoor collection, which we launched just last year. The collection features the durable, easy to maintain surfaces that we're known for in 3 beautiful patent pending colors. The collection has been treated and tested in a variety of environmental conditions and can truly weather any weather. Sponsoring the Impact by Design competition combines these two Caesarstone passions, supporting designers and driving trends. And it combines these perfectly for us by inviting the design community to create proposals for public spaces in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and downtown Manhattan with products from our outdoor collection. We were so excited when we saw all the submissions. We were just really blown away. And I think I can speak for the whole jury when I say that they went far and beyond anything that we could have imagined, and narrowing them down to 2 winners was extremely challenging. So congratulations to all the submitters. Without further ado, we're celebrating 2. The first one is Turnout by Kareem Rashid and Spiral of Life by Kiki Judakova as the 2021 Impact by Design winners. As teased in its name, Kareem designed Turnout by turning Caesarstone slabs on their side horizontally and cutting out interior shapes that are then repurposed to form benches and tables to reduce waste. The design is reconfigurable, which will help it react to the installation site's needs and can be installed to create intimate enclosed spaces, long and linear seating, or playful zigzag iterations. Kiki's Spiral of Life is a modular bench consisting of water jet cut pieces of Caesarstone connected by a single metal structure on the bottom to invite people to sit, to think, while enjoying their neighborhood views and each other in real life. It can be arranged into a straight line or curved to also fit the selected site, and it also makes the most use of the material with the inner seat cutouts being used as side tables around the seating area. We'll be working together with Kareem and Kiki, as well as NYC by Design and the neighborhoods themselves to bring these to life in the coming months. We can't wait to unveil them to you all and to the city later this fall. So congratulations to Kareem and Kiki, and thank you to everyone else who entered the Impact by Design competition.
Great. So thank you for everybody for joining. And we just want to take a couple more minutes to close and share plans for the fall and the future. So one quick update on the Breakout Grant. So this grant will fund and promote entrepreneurship and design in New York City by awarding 3 designers an opportunity to bring a product or project to the next level. We had a great turnout of applicants for our inaugural grant and an amazing jury. The grant recipients will be announced the week of May 24th, so be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. And an ode to NYC. We will launch the 2nd annual edition of an ode to NYC this October. The poster campaign will feature 20 new custom posters by leading NYC-based designers and will depict the theme of our future city. The last 12 months have made a deep impact on New York City, on its streets, people, and culture. The pandemic united us against a common challenge and showed us how we will need to play a part in building a better future for New York City. This year's theme of our future city will inspire designers to reinvent a New York City icon, reimagine a building or a place, paint a vision of tomorrow, or make a bold graphic statement. The campaign will take place throughout the month of October, and posters will be distributed across the 5 boroughs for showcase in window fronts of design showrooms, cultural institutions, shop, restaurants, and more. And again, the posters will be available for sale.
And this year we'll be holding our signature Design Week Festival from November 11 to 18, which will coincide with ICFF and Wanted Design's Manhattan's rescheduled fair at Javits Center. As you know, the Design Week Festival traditionally happens in May, and we expect in 2022 to return to the usual May slot. But for now, we hope you'll enjoy us in real life in November, all circumstances permitting, and see all of the amazing design that New York City has to offer. That's it for us today. It brings us to the end of today's session, and we're delighted that so many of you joined us. We hope as many of you can enjoy the programs and events at Design Days across May 13 to 18. You can find all of the details on our website. And please, if you have questions, feel free to send them to Val and I, or to the Navita team. And let us know if you want to talk further. If you can, drop by the Residency at Hudson Yards tomorrow. We'd love to see you. Keep in touch and spread the word. Tag us on social at NYC by Design. Thank you all.
My name is Amaurys Grullon, and we're at the Bronx Native shop. I believe that the Bronx is the most beautiful place on earth. I was born and raised here in this beautiful borough, and my whole life I heard negative things about it. A misperspective, you know what I mean? And we made it, our duty to change that narrative, to showcase the Bronx the right way, to represent our people the right way. Bronx Native is a brand that embodies what the Bronx truly is. We highlight our home, our borough, our people through art, media, apparel, events, and more. We're here to be a platform for expression, and it's been a beautiful journey, yeah. I've always been an artist, and I really saw my future more as a graphic designer than an illustrator, so I went that route. I went to the School of Visual Arts for my bachelor's. My senior professor was Paula Scheer. Every time I had the chance to design something about the Bronx, I always made it about the Bronx. She always used to be so excited to see my presentation or see my work, and she used to say, I like when you present, because you show us how the Bronx looks, right? And then she said, you should brand the Bronx. And I was, it was kind of dope, to hear that from somebody so well known and such an incredible designer, telling, an up and coming designer that was pretty amazing to me. Something that connected my design with my community, This space, it happened very organically. We weren't planning to open up a commercial space, but we were able to have the opportunity to create something here. For us, it wasn't only about selling a product. It wasn't about selling a shirt. With the shop, we wanted to create an interactive experience, something that when people come in, they feel the Bronx, right? It's an authentic representation, an authentic experience that shows you the boogie down Bronx, right? For instance, the walls are all taggable, right? Reflecting just the community and just reflecting also off of graffiti, right? And graffiti being one of the elements of hip hop. So many incredible things came out of the Bronx, like hip hop, like salsa, like doo-wop. This is definitely a melting pot of so many different cultures, and we wanted the shop to incorporate that, right? I really feel that the shop represents the Bronx in the mostest and the bestest of ways, yeah. Bronx Native has been part of a movement, and that movement is a Bronx Renaissance, right? There's so much empowerment here. There's so much going on when it comes to up and coming creatives doing their work, and having fun doing it, right? Expressing themselves, creating platforms for representation, right? Creating spaces, inclusive spaces that allow our people to go out there and do what they want to do, right? They can create, they can make it happen, they can design, they can create their own narrative, their own future, and take real ownership of that. And real quick, can I get a yeah? That was the catchphrase right there. You already know. Thank you.
Welcome to our New York City Design Leader Conversations. This conversation is one of a series of 6 taking place this week as part of Design Days, which is a week-long festival celebrating New York City as a creative capital of design. Today will be focused on architecture and its capacity to create and support inclusive communities in the city. And we'll be speaking to two of the city's leading architects that have been spearheading projects in the city that have been transformative during these disruptive times in terms of bringing architecture to bear in support of community and inspiring us all about the possibilities of design. My name is Alyssa Black, and I'm the Executive Director of NYC by Design, and I'm tuning in today from Brooklyn, New York. New York City by Design is a newly minted nonprofit organization, and we empower and promote the entire design community of New York City. Though new in format, we have been around since 2013, and we've been nurturing and creating all of New York City's design professions, people, industry, and events since that time. We represent the design community at large and in its broadest sense, from every design discipline, including architects, interior, furniture, product, industrial and tech designers, textile designers, digital graphic designers, and all adjacent creative enterprises. That includes our design makers, manufacturers, suppliers, builders, design districts. And in addition, we work alongside the city's cultural institutions and academic institutions that are also focused on design. Through our year-round program, NYC by Design seeks to celebrate and educate about design. We bring new and equitable opportunities to the entire design community, and we encourage our city's young adults to grow into our designers of tomorrow. And today, here I am, I'm delighted to welcome two of the city's leading architects, Fozia Kanani and Colin Coop. Fozia is the principal and founder of Studio 4, and Colin is a design partner at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, which I'll refer to from here as SOM. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start off with asking you, Colin and Fozia, about your projects and who you are as designers. Fozia, I'll start with you. You lead Studio 4, which is an architecture and design practice in New York City that embodies a diverse group of practitioners that seek change in the world, which is a rather grand and large task. But I understand you and the studio dedicate time and resources to making that change be a reality and to create unique spaces and support more inclusivity in the design world. I also understand that social science research and public health are in your background, and have been said to strongly influence your practice. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the design work that you're involved with and what led you to become a designer.
Thanks so much, Alyssa, and thanks for having me. I think really architecture came to me like a little bit later in life. I started my education and career in sociology and public health, and then sort of decided to study architecture as my secondary degree. And it really is a tool for me to utilize the sort of ways of practice that I learned through sociology and public health, which are kind of the things that are hot topics right now, which are things like community engagement and sort of allowing your clients and your community to really drive the process, including the design process. And so I feel in some ways that architecture is finally taking cues from other disciplines as we evolve, and I think the last year has had a big impact on that.
Thank you. Colin, you were an instrumental part of SOM's recent work on the recently opened Moynihan Train Hall in New York City. And perhaps I shouldn't describe it as recent work because I understand it was 20 years in the making within your firm, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about that project in detail later. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself as a designer. You've been described as having a body of work in architecture defined by social conscience and an inclusive design process. So can you tell us how those things come out in your work and how you came to be in this profession?
Sure. It's nice to be here. I had a little different experience than Fozia in the sense that I don't really have a memory of when I wanted to be an architect. It's something that was sort of defined really early on by myself and my life. And I pursued that, as both my undergraduate and graduate degree, and sort of entered the world sort of ready to figure out what I wanted to build. And you know, at a practice as large as SOM, you have a lot of choices. And I think I found myself very early on migrating to the kinds of projects that I would describe as, you know, almost the definition in the latest, you know, proposed infrastructure bill, which is like, it's infrastructure, but it's also social infrastructure. So certainly train stations and things that move people efficiently, but also a lot of learning and teaching spaces, libraries, community-centered spaces. You know, one of the first projects that I really was in dialogue deeply was working on the University Center for the New School, which was absolutely a building which was informed deeply by the culture of the place and the voices that felt strongly about how they wanted it realized. And I do believe strongly that, you know, as an architect, you bring two things. You bring creativity and you bring expertise. You don't actually bring the right answer a lot of the times, and you have to be humble enough to acknowledge that, you know, what your talents allow you to do is limited if you can't listen, if you can't hear, and also if you can't create a big tent that allows all of the collaborators to sort of bring the best ideas to the table. And that's something that I think we're trying to build as much as possible into the projects we do every day.
It's that idea of collaboration actually that I wanted to touch upon next. As we all know, the ecosystem of design in New York City is truly expansive. And at NYCxDESIGN Design as an organization, we're really seeking to support that entire design ecosystem across all of its different parts. As I mentioned, not only the design professions, but all of the people who make projects happen, such as our builders, makers, manufacturers, suppliers, the city. And all of these people are really necessary to come together to achieve design projects in this city. And the two of you are key players within that design ecosystem in the city. I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit, and Cullen, I'll ask you first about, you know, what is your connection to that ecosystem and what collaborations have you been involved with in New York City that have been really transformational?
I think when I came to New York a little under 20 years ago, I think the first thing that it's impressed upon you is that in many ways, every New Yorker is part of the design community. I think this city has been sort of built incrementally by generations of immigrants, generations of people. And although I think of the designers, the architects and the graphic designers as like a small town in the big city, because many of us cross paths continually, there is this broader acknowledgement of the institutions that make the city, of the union labor that makes the city, of the people that then use the buildings and want their voices heard through the community board system. And all of those sort of intertwine to, I think, make New York what it is, which is this sort of incredibly powerful representation of what humane, high density living can look like. And all of those are sort of on display in Moynihan Station. Just start with the fact that you're intervening in a building which was, you know, built over 100 years ago by a separate generation of people for a different use, that you're trying to sort of reposition and find a new heart for it. But I will also point out that, you know, SOM won the commission for this project when I was an undergraduate in college. And it was passed down through generations of architects and urban planners, transportation specialists, who one by one worked closely with, you know, a contractor. It was a design build. We were contracted to the labor building the project, and to the Empire State Development Corporation, who, you know, figured out how to visualize and build this. You would lose track of all of the people who have made a contribution to that project. And I think the power of it when you walk in is not that it is a single, you know, gesture that an architect sketched on a napkin one evening over cocktails and it became a building. It is the incremental gestation of the project and its realization, its respect for its history as a work of architecture, but the infusion of new energy and new technology. That is what makes that project remarkable. And I do think that is in a small way, a good front door for New York. It's a metaphor for that expression of New York City as both wanting to be at the cutting edge, wanting to be transforming for the better constantly, but having this connection to its cultural history.
And what about you, Fozia? What are some of the projects that have been collaborations within this ecosystem, and what have you found to be the most impactful ways of working within it?
I think the projects that we've been doing since COVID hit have been collaborations between multiple firms, multiple sort of consultants, manufacturers, even NYC by Design, as part of a group called Design Advocates, and we all came together last April and sort of were knocking our heads together trying to figure out how we could help the situation. And you know, I think there were a whole slew of design issues that came to light pretty soon after COVID hit the city, and we all sort of realized we could help in that way. And so, you know, since then we started out as 10 firms, 10 small firms in that group, and we're now up to, you know, 170 volunteer firms and individuals, and we're collaborating with, you know, lots of engineers in the city. We're collaborating with furniture and product manufacturers who are donating to clients who can't afford some of the design solutions that they need. And so I've seen the ecosystem, at least in my world and in our firm, grow in a way that I haven't seen in the 10 years that we've been established. So it's, I will say it's one of the positive things that I was not expecting from the events of the last year.
Yeah, I think we've seen with COVID, in fact, has been very revelatory of the power of the design community to really tackle a crisis. And that's right across the design spectrum. It was very inspirational seeing design respond to what we had in front of us, you know, at the beginning of like February, March last year. And I was very inspired by watching that design community come together and act on the issue and provide an alleviation of the effects of pandemic through, you know, many ways. So we had our product designers and fashion designers creating PPE and attire that's keeping us all safe. We had digital and tech designers who are creating health service apps, helping with like the health service delivery modes, COVID tracking and vaccines. And, you know, watching our interior product architects and textile designers really recreate and reimagine what our like home, public space and business spaces could look like. And they continue to sort of reformulate what that's going to look like for the future. And so for me, it was very inspirational to watch the design profession come together with that broader community that Fozia just described, all the makers, manufacturers, suppliers, and really take effort towards tackling the pandemic, but also now effort towards, as you referenced, design advocates and other efforts to the safe reopening and renewal. And so a question for you, Fozia, first. I'm wondering how your definition of what a designer is might have shifted during COVID, and how experiencing the pandemic across the last 14 months has really shifted either your approach as a designer or your business approach or perception of the design field.
Wow, that's a pretty loaded question. I guess maybe I can start with the role of designers and architects, and I think directly related to COVID, there was a great need. You know, I think the first batch of projects were all about open restaurants and helping you know, small restaurant owners and family-owned restaurants try and figure out how to reopen. And so, you know, there was a period where we actually had to spend time with them and get to know them and understand their businesses, and in a way actually try and convince them that this was a good effort and that it was worth their time, and that there were no strings attached, and that was something you know, we had to really work on and work with them on. And I think once we passed that hump, we also sort of realized we as architects and designers are agents for these people who don't really have direct lines to, say, DOT or the Department of Buildings when they're trying to install these installations, and everything they need to know is online, but they don't really know how to maneuver that system. And so in a way, we became community agents, is how I saw it, or even social workers in a weird way, where we were trying to help them maneuver a system they had no idea how to.
And Colin, what would your experience be, having gone through this pandemic and thinking about the design profession and your own approaches as a designer? How did it affect you?
Yeah, I mean, when you asked the question, my mind went immediately to a lot of the colleges and secondary schools that we've worked with in the past, who immediately started calling us and asking us, you know, what to do in terms of to ensure safe spaces and to retrofit spaces. And so what seemed to, you know, be one of the truths about being an architect, you know, previously, is that you spend all this time in deep conversation with your client, and then you finally build the building, and then they move in, and then it's theirs, right? And you hand it to them and they make them what it is. That relationship has extended much longer after opening. And you know, even on, and it's also almost just you're a brainstormer and an expert. You know, we were working with Wellesley College on a science center project right now, but just talking to their facilities group, who were like, well, you know, what can we do with our chapel? We need to teach a large class. Can we fit a class in the chapel? And it, you know, so the conversations went beyond the scope of the project, beyond the areas, and it's really just people trying to figure out how to problem solve in real time, you know, with public health and safety being at the forefront. And that kind of, you know, sort of conversation about how to build into an existing structure that you design, the resiliency that you hope for by helping them solve the problems, is sort of, I think, going to be one of those feedback loops for many architects that hopefully will inform the next building that is on the boards for how it can be more resilient.
Yeah, I think what we've just been talking about really makes manifest that power of design thinking to really look at a problem and break it down, formulate an innovative solution, and in the process, you know, catalyze broader positive social impact. And I think it's interesting to think about design and its capacity, you know, not just the pandemic, but to also respond to broader social issues that we're seeing out there. And some of the design-based initiatives I've seen recently see design acting on issues as broadly ranging from justice to climate, curbing racial inequality, the creation of equitable public space, community resilience, and recovery. And so I'm wondering, for the two of you, what do you see as the next sort of big thing that the design community of New York City should tackle? And Colin, I'll ask you to respond first.
Yeah, I guess my initial knee-jerk reaction is we should probably focus on ourselves a little bit. I think that we have professions, you know, which are not representative of the broader demographics of the population, and probably a lot of soul searching that we need to do about the nature of how people are recruited and encouraged to join the design community when they're in high school, when they're in elementary school, when they're in college, how they make it into the workforce, and then how they're advanced into positions of leadership. So that's something that I think, you know, we at SOM started a conversation around 4 years ago around that topic. It's obviously been accelerated by the last year's worth of change. Finding ways to make connections to HBOC, historic Black and colleges, and trying to recruit more actively from those. Developing a new scholarship through the foundation for BIPOC students only that, you know, pays tuition. And then looking internally at the organization, I think, as a, you know, one of the realities and one of the dynamics and the tensions in our profession as architects is there are drastically different scales of practice. There's scales of one, and then there's scales of thousands. And SOM's at the, let's say, the upper echelon in terms of just size. And so the truth of the matter is that more could change more quickly if we're able to sort of advance change within that sort of environment. And so building an EDI plan, making commitments, being more transparent about what the demographics of the staff are, those are all things that I think the whole profession needs to do, because I think the project work and what we can do and what we can advocate for outside the profession is also a direct result of the diversity that we have within the profession. And you have to have both of those things to be successful.
I know, Fozia, that what Colin's just been talking about has been very much front and center for you through your Designers Protest collective. I'm hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit more about the work that you've been doing there.
Yeah, the work we've been doing with Designers Protest, I guess, really took flight last June after the killing of George Floyd. And Designers Protest has been around for a number of years. And I think last summer, a lot of us in the design profession who are of the BIPOC and LGBTQ plus kind of population decided that we were ready to sort of get back together and push forward some new initiatives. And so, we focus on what we call our design justice demands, and they are 9 demands that relate to the built environment and the practice of architecture. And we're sort of saying these are the foundations of how to fundamentally change our industry and the practice and sort of how it affects communities. And so all of our work is based on that. And we've recently finished up what we call our Anti-Racist Design Justice Index, which is essentially collection of research that we've done and ideologies that we've put together for firms, for professional industry organizations, and for local government to sort of use as a guide as to how to make their institutions anti-racist. And so it covers everything from internal workings, leadership and staff, to finance and budgets, and then to external programs and how they're affecting the communities. So we're going to have a big release of that in our Anti-Racist Design Justice Index newspaper in June. And so, we hope that, our fellow practitioners and firms and organizations will really take heed and put the time and the effort in to make change moving forward.
Yeah, it's a super important work. We're reaching the end of our time together. So I wanted to ask you both one final question, which is, if you were talking to your younger self at the very beginnings of entering the design profession, what advice do you wish you had, or what advice would you have given to yourself at that point in time? And Fozia, let's speak to you if you would respond first, please.
I think as a woman of color, as an immigrant, I would sort of ask myself to have maybe a little more courage and the ability to challenge a little bit more earlier in my career. I think I often had an apprehension because I wasn't sure of what the repercussions would be like in our industry that, is predominantly white and male. And I will say it's been pretty refreshing over the course of the last year to be able to talk more openly about all of these issues. And yeah, I would just sort of say to others out there who are maybe starting off in your career, like, stand up for yourself and stand up to make our practice equitable and inclusive and diverse for yourself and for others.
And Colin, how about you? What would be the advice to your younger self as you were entering the profession, if you'd had the opportunity to advise yourself at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many people who love architecture and want to practice it, you fall in love with buildings, oftentimes specific architects from the past or a specific building that had a great impact on you. And I think one of the truths of being a practicing architect is that that you don't see a building realized very often. You have years and years of putting your head down and sort of driving through a process to realize something. And I think the thing that maybe the twofold advice is, first, to just love the process more than the product. It's a deeply enjoyable thing to be an architect if you can enjoy that part of it, just the messiness of the design process and the back and forth. And then the second thing I would say is that, to separate your identity as an architect from the act of realizing buildings is maybe something I've realized in the past year, right? And buildings are a big part of what gives our profession identity, but you're fundamentally, learning about the world by being an architect. If you're doing a hospital, you're learning about how people are healed. If you're doing a school, you're learning about how people are taught. And that knowledge puts us in a very unique place because we have a broader awareness of society, culture, and the ecosystem, and that is something that we can use that voice for something other than only building buildings. Buildings are great, but there are other ways to use that voice too.
All right, I see that we have time for one more question, in fact. So, Fozia, to you, you spoke to the profession and your work with Designers Protest Collective, but beyond that, I'm wondering your thoughts. I know that your studio works very, very broadly in terms of social issues, and I'm wondering where you see designers are most needed to secure our futures.
It's a really interesting question because I've been thinking about it a lot, and I have seen an evolution through my own path in architecture, and I am now really convinced that architects really need to take a role in policymaking, and I think we're often kind of accessed for information and when those policies are made, but I think we actually need to have a seat at the table and be part of the conversations and maybe be driving policy. And I often think it's rare that you ever see architects as politicians, and I sort of wonder if that's kind of the next big route for us to go.
I couldn't agree more with that. I stole the words out of my mouth, and I to bring it full circle, the few people in politics that have taken an interest in the built environment have usually had tremendous impact. And I think of, Senator Patrick Moynihan, who set the design standards for the federal government for half a century, and thinking about what the physical expression could be. If you had architects that were in those same positions as senators and representatives and council members and at every level of government, I think you would see better, broader policy for, the care and the growth and the expression of the physical environment.
Thank you. Well, I think that brings us to time, everyone. So I wanted to say thank you very much for your time with us today and contributing, and hope you enjoy Design Days.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Fozia.
Thanks for tuning in to NYC by Design and this program for Design Days. And now I'd like to thank our sponsor of today's conversation, Eventscape.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie Hoffman, Program Director for NYC by Design. Formed in 2013, but recently established as a nonprofit organization, NYC by Design is committed to empowering and promoting the city's diverse design community through mission-based programming and year-round activations, including our annual festival. Today, we're here during Design Days. While our city is still rebooting from the challenging last year, we wanted to dedicate time to celebrate the amazing design that's happening now and share new ways to safely explore our city through design. As part of this effort, we launched a new platform called Self-Guided Journeys, a beautiful and highly interactive way to explore some of New York City's most creative neighborhoods. Whether you live in the 5 boroughs or 5,000 miles away, we've compiled an opportunity for everyone to experience NYC's design scene. Thanks for joining us today as we bring the Self-Guided Journey maps to life with In the Neighborhood chats. From Long Island City to Red Hook, we're excited to check in with some of our design friends across NYC. Today, we're headed to the South Bronx. This tight-knit neighborhood was historically home to many industrial factories that are now repurposed primarily as creative studios. The area's walkability and proximity to Manhattan has made it a desirable area for budding creatives to set up shop, leading to the neighborhood's recent creative renaissance. Mott Haven, Melrose, and Port Morris are all booming with makers, cultural institutions, shops, and restaurants, and the pride that these designers have for the borough is really inspiring. Today, I have 3 amazing members of the South Bronx design community here with me: Jerome Lamar, Amaurys Grullon, and Jake Szymanski. Jerome Lamar, born and raised in the Bronx, started his career at the age of 15 and quickly became a trendsetter traveling the globe to contribute and guide some of the world's leading brands. In 2015, he opened a luxury pop-up boutique in the South Bronx called 9J, which shifted the image of the Bronx by showcasing art, music, design, and new thought. Lamar sits as the youngest trustee on the board of the Bronx Museum of the Art and also acted as the lead creative director and designer for the super successful 2020 launch of Beyonce's Ivy Park Adidas collection. Amaurys is an entrepreneur who founded his own creative agency in 2014, and wanting to make a difference in his community, he teamed up with his sister to create Bronx Native. The retail space devoted to Bronx-themed apparel, art, and media was created to take the rich history and culture of the Bronx and put it together to showcase Amaurys' home borough the right way. Jake is a maker and designer of one-of-a-kind furniture and objects. The Mott Haven studio, founded in 2016, introduces radical new shapes and demonstrates a fascination with unique geometries, raw materials, and unusual forms. Jake's early design practice was inspired by his years living in Nepal and Spain and often visits to Morocco. Jake returned to the US to study interior design at FIT and SVA, and now, in addition to his own design work, he has become an advocate for the South Bronx design community as a whole. Welcome to the 3 of you.
Thank you. What's up?
Let's jump in by talking a bit about each of your roles in the neighborhood. Jerome, let's start with you. It's fair to say you've done a lot to put the South Bronx neighborhood on the map from a creative perspective. Can you tell us about that journey and why it's important for you as a designer to maintain your Bronx identity?
Well. In 2015, I had just gotten back from traveling the world. I was in Japan, I was in Dubai, Paris, and I came back home and I realized that the Bronx felt overlooked, and I just wanted to create something that felt cool and authentic and had a different narrative than what people thought the Bronx was at the time, which was burning and lots of pain. And the way I saw the Bronx was full of creativity and magic, in a sense. I wanted to create something that was almost like a hub for all of us to come together and discover one another. And, you know, the store wasn't meant to be opened for much than, let's say, 3 months. It was supposed to just be a small pop-up to cultivate ideas. Instead, it lasted for 3 years. And I just simply wanted to create something that felt very authentic, very new, and also somewhat magical to all the creative, amazing people like Amaurys and Jake that's in this neighborhood. And I'm very grateful for it.
And Amaurys, I know your design education began at the School of Visual Arts, and you had the opportunity to learn from Paula Scher. How did that experience push you to jumpstart your brand and ultimately open your own shop?
Yes, yes. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. This is beautiful, and we should be having this all the time. Great conversations. So yeah, so I went to the School of Visual Arts, and I was able to, hone my skills as a graphic designer at SVA with Paula Scheer. And what SVA taught me was how to really look at a visual language, right? How do we take something that we're passionate about? How do we make design work for us, right? And that's exactly what we did with Bronx Native. We created great design that represents us. We created something that you feel, something authentic. I always give the ups to Jerome Lamar, for opening 9J, because it was one of the first introductions to Mott Haven, right? And introductions to this art movement that's been happening here in the South Bronx. So, when he started 9J, I was there at all the events. I was there chatting with him, at the door, like, hey, what's up, buddy? And those were some of the foundational moments for Bronx Native, right? Having those conversations, talking about expression, talking about individuality, and just seeing our borough and our people grow and succeed. So it's been an incredible journey, Mm-hmm.
And Jake, tell us about your studio and why you originally decided to set up shop in the South Bronx.
Sure. So my company, my furniture studio, is about 5 years old. 6 years ago, I moved to the Bronx. I lived in Brooklyn for about 4 years before that. So I was up on the concourse, and I'd take my bike down and just kind of bike through Mott Haven, and I'd see a lot of the development going on. And it was really, really fascinating. When I switched into furniture design, I began to look for studios, and there's this building next to the Bruckner Bridge that is just beautiful. So an opportunity came up where I could get a space in there. And for the last 5 years, I've been able to kind of observe what's happening, and the creative community is just, it's really exciting. And I've observed for some time, and I think it's a moment to kind of dive in and get a closer look at what's going on here.
You all are deeply invested in the Bronx community at different touch points. Let's talk a little bit about that collaboration and about that education and public display of the Bronx. How do you each use your spaces, your practices, your strengths to engage and uplift the local design community? Jake, want to start with you?
Sure. So it's been fun. I came in really fresh into the business. I didn't have any vendors. My network was very small. So coming into the Bronx, I really started here. This was my starting point. So it gave me an opportunity to just first look and see what's around me. I had connections within my own industry, but I needed more support. So, just again, I take my bike and I discover an upholsterer over here, and then Port Morris is such a cool, exciting neighborhood too. I came across the stone guy over there, and Hunts Point is like just industrial, buzzy, and so raw and wild. And we've got vendors over there. So over the last 5 years, we've just kind of it's been years of discovery, really, and it's been exciting. So now, in addition to discovering, we're hoping to just reel in those relationships we've made, especially during COVID. I think it's so critical to support each other, and just kind of keep seeing where this goes.
And Jake, I know in your new space, you're planning to have a gallery that can also showcase some other local Bronx creatives. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we recently moved, and we're still in Mott Haven. It's a 5,000 square foot space that was a huge leap for us. Not only rent wise, but just it was more space than we needed. But it's helped us to create this extension of what we're doing, and that is to connect with more people by offering a place to showcase work, and even a place to work on their work. We're hoping to get involved in some sort of fellowship where we can sort of help cultivate people by way of giving them resources and space, which is so valuable here.
Awesome. Can't wait to see what happens with that. Amaurys, let's talk more about Bronx Native and what the shop has meant for the community.
Yes, yes. So, for us, from the beginning, opening up the shop, it wasn't necessarily about selling merchandise, that represents us and empowers us, but it was mostly about creating a platform, an inclusive platform for expression, an inclusive platform to see our people do their thing, right? We want creatives in there at all times. We want entrepreneurs in there at all times. We want conversations. We want people to break bread. For us, we use the space as a multi-purpose space. Having events twice, 3 times a week, from open mics to community events, workshops on financial literacy, school trips, and whatever we can do to promote the Bronx and to promote our people. The shop for me, it's like, and similar to 9J story, we started as a pop-up as well. We were only supposed to be there for 2 weeks. And from 2 weeks, we're about to hit 4 years now at the space in October. So for me, when I think about the shop, I think about the metaphor of a heart. The shop for me is a pumping heart, that pumps blood into the community and that is created by the community. Even the fact of having an interactive experience that everyone that comes in the shop could tag up, can leave the mark, can leave their signature, is something very special to us. And basically, the shop, it's by its people, for its people. So,
And tell us, there's a great story, of course, over the past 14 months with the challenges from COVID that the Bronx Native remained. Tell us about that story.
Yes. They have a quote here in the Bronx that says, "Only the strong survive," right? We are survivors, we are warriors, we're powerful, right? And through the pandemic, of course, we were hit through many, obstacles, many things that came out of nowhere, right? And of course, we pivoted, we worked hard, we kept our heads up, and we continue to provide not only, what we needed, but what the community needed, right? Words of advice. We were on social every day, talking to our people, engaging. The community definitely helped us out. We were pushed towards the edge. We opened up a GoFundMe, and the amount of love, the amount of support that we got, not only from the community, the neighborhood, the Bronx, but the world, right, has been, overwhelming, definitely a humbling experience. And it's something that, we're going to take with us forever, and it's a beautiful thing.
And Jerome, I think of you as inspiring the next generation of the Bronx. Tell us about how that makes you feel, how you feel that you continue to uphold that mission. I know you have several roles, like on the board of the Bronx Museum of the Art, that really depict that. Can you just talk a bit about how you see yourself in the community?
It's very interesting. The key word is cultivating. I think that's what everything is about, what Jake said, what Amaurys said. I think at the heart of everything I do is about sharing the light that I can bring. It's easy for me to get press, it's easy for me to get attention, it's easy for me to get celebrity because I have access to all those people. But how do you bring the light to a point where you can share it with the community that you're in? So that's what, I think that's my superpower in a way. Like, okay, cool. This is, okay, I can attract this brand. I can attract this celebrity. How can we spread it around so everyone could eat or create from it? With that being said, I love the fact that I can be an inspiration or a reference or anything that's going to spur creativity. Creativity to me is the end all be all. You have to wake up and want to eat it, drink it, live it, be it. I said that already, but that's the most important part of it, and I think if that's my role, if I'm the Joan of Arc of fighting for creativity and knocking down doors and shedding light on different situations within the Bronx or globally, then so be it. And I love it. I love it. And this is just the beginning. You know, I'm trying to find new board members for the Bronx Museum. And also I'll join the Children's Museum of the Bronx, right? How do you keep pushing the generation of the Bronx forward in a very creative way, in an open-minded way as well? So that's my goal, and I'm going to keep to it.
And thinking about the future of the South Bronx, Mott Haven, Melrose, Port Morris, what do you want the neighborhood to look like in 5 to 10 years? What do you hope the neighborhood holds on to? What do you hope for the future?
Well, I just want to make sure that, you know, people who come to the neighborhood, no matter what race, age, occupation, that they respect the culture that the Bronx has held on to, which is why Amaurys is very important, right? He's giving a new perspective and educating some people who are moving here as well on what the Bronx already has. And that is culture, that is diversity, that is, you know, there's several millionaires who live in the Bronx, right? Most people don't know that side. They just see the poverty. But, you know, if you can take a minute to kind of respect everyone within the space, and while you're walking down the street, say hello and keep a community moving forward, that is the most important part. I think the future of this area of the South Bronx is going to be, I don't like saying this, but it's kind of, it could be a utopia. It could be, you know, the way that we saw Dubai change into its own city within that newness, that approach to technology and sustainability and community. I think we can make the South Bronx into the Qatar or the Abu Dhabi of New York City. And how do you do that, right? Embracing the local community, bringing in the arts, making sure you are embracing the latter of the two, right? And making sure that you are just being polite. And I think hopefully that can make this little utopian idea of the Bronx or the South Bronx keep moving forward.
I love that.
It's very utopian, but it's the way that I've always seen the world, right? How do we fuse great energy to create something that is just beautiful and new and fresh? And, you know, we are the last frontier of New York City, right? There's no other place you can really develop. You know, you can, but the Bronx has its own history. And we should embrace that and build on top of that as well.
Amaurys, anything to add to that future picture for the Bronx?
I just, you know, happy to be part of that, you know, and looking forward to that. But definitely, you know, I'm with you with that. Let's get it. The next utopia. Let's do it.
So Jake, Jerome was talking about how the Bronx has its own identity, its own history. Can you tell us from your perspective a bit about how the Bronx is distinct? What makes your neighborhood, the South Bronx, different from other New York City neighborhoods or different from other neighborhoods you've lived in around the world?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been here for 6 years, but at the same time, I'm new. There's no question about it. I wasn't here, you know, during what was arguably the very hard times. I'm sort of seeing what the Bronx is now, and what it is now is incredible. But I do think it's important to know the history if you are going to move here, if you are going to, you know, especially start a business here. I think that's the only way that you're really going to be able to lend respect to the borough and understand, you know, how to cultivate it and be part of that new wave. But it is such a cool neighborhood. There's something so authentic about it. I mean, I think a lot of other boroughs and communities are just filled with transplants. And although I'm a transplant, the majority of people around me are from the Bronx. The skill and the talent is from here, and it's grown here. And I hope to see more of that as people become more proud of what they're doing. It'll give other people sort of permission to come out and be like, yeah, I create too. Like this, you know, I want to share other communities in the rest of New York what we're doing. And I think we'll start seeing more people that way.
Jake, you've told me about some really cool buildings in your area by where you live and by where you work. Tell me a little bit about that history that you've studied and learned.
Yeah, so I'm an informal architecture nerd. My background's interior design, and truth is I just didn't have the grades to go into architecture, but nonetheless, I love it. And I South Bronx in particular has a really cool history of fabrication. So you've got these bones of these old buildings that produced toilets. Like the Bruckner building that I was in before, ironically, produced decorative iron pieces, and we do iron. So, and then there's obviously the Clock Tower building, which is now a residential building, but it's kind of the anchor for all these cool buildings. There's no arguing we're losing a lot of that right now, which is a little bit sad. But what we have is really beautiful and worth a trip up here just to see.
I want to get into a bit of the conversation about the past 14 months and how that may have affected this renaissance that's happening in the South Bronx right now. As makers, creatives, change makers, you all understand the importance of design and how it impacts all aspects of our daily lives, and that became even more relevant during COVID. How do you think we can educate or show our city, or if we want to get more local, the South Bronx community, the importance of design in our world and why valuing it can lead to a more equitable and happier future?
That's a loaded question, but I'm going to start by simply saying it starts with giving the tools to the community so they can discover what's within their community. You know, I think I was very blessed to have parents who took me to museums and, you know, put me in art programs and allowed me to actually see New York as a whole, and venture outside of the borough. So now that we're opening back up New York itself, I think it's very important for the parents of the South Bronx, the Bronx overall, to explore the city. You know, the Bronx is the greenest borough. You know, we have Pelham Bay Park, we have the Botanical Gardens, we have Yankee Stadium, we have the Bronx Zoo, we have everything that people come to New York for, right? And it's sometimes growing up in the Bronx, you don't have an opportunity to see the Bronx. And being a young boy growing up in Soundview, and being the person who got a chance to travel the world with my parents and see the city overall, it allowed me to open up my eyes to the wonderful world of creativity, whether it's painting or playing in color or building, whatever it is, I had the foundation to do so. So with that being said, I partnered with the Bronx Children's Museum to create an experience that is digital, that will allow the next generation of students, of children, whatnot, to come into the museum once it's built in 2022, to discover the Bronx through dance and culture and art and characters that I designed that represents different categories within the Bronx. So hopefully that will help. But we designed it during the pandemic, and we wanted to make sure it felt optimistic and special. We wanted people to feel like they could come to the museum and basically feel like they've gone to Disney World in their own backyard, right? So hopefully it works out and people actually come and visit it, but that's the way I kind of contributed to the community within the pandemic.
I'm sure people will. That sounds amazing. Amaurys, do you want to add to that?
Yes. Yeah, you know, when it comes to us, it's all about changing that narrative, right? For me, you know, growing up, I think a lot of the times is a mindset, right? We're taught to grow up in this certain mindset that we're kind of stuck in this box. we can't do, you know, this, we can't do that, you know, that's reserved for that, you know, and we tend to stay in our own kind of mindset, in our own box. And since we started Bronx Native, it's been about breaking the norm, right? It's been about thinking outside the box. It's about changing that narrative and changing that mindset, right? You can be from the Bronx, but you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whatever you want to do, right? We believe in, like I said, you know, entrepreneurship, creativity, and wealth, and create and founders, right, and ownership, right? So we are constantly putting out visuals, right, social media posts, events at the shop, constantly putting out things for the community, so we can reach our full potential, right? The raw talent, right? The rawness that is here, and just the flavors, and just all these things, right? We've already created it, right? With hip hop, right? With salsa, with all these incredible things. Now it's time to take ownership of that, right? And to just do what we got to do, you know what I mean? And support each other and help each other grow. Because if we don't, right, who will? Who's gonna help us out? So we're here for that. And during the whole pandemic, you know what I mean, we were, like I said, pushed to the edge, but we were constantly putting out merchandise that you know, we had a shirt that said "The Bronx will rise," and we had a whole initiative telling everyone that, you know, even though we're going through all these things, and we're collectively going through these struggles, we will rise just how we did during the 70s or in the 80s, when the Bronx was burning, the buildings were burning, our families were struggling. But in the midst of it all, you know, we created so many incredible things. We remixed the world, right, through hip hop and through all these incredible things, and it's incredible. So yeah, and this is, like us, you know, like we've been saying, it's only the beginning.
Jake, would you like to add something here?
Yeah. So for us, we're really trying to get in this mindset of accessibility. We work on the second floor of a building. You know, we're kind of behind closed doors. A lot of people don't even know we're here. But I think after some time of the Bronx giving so much to us, I think we're at a point where I really want to begin to give back. And I think a way to do that is to just be accessible, just you know, not be too cool for school, which I think a lot of artist studios are. They kind of give that air of inaccessibility, but I think we want to say we're here. We're kind of inviting people to come and use our resources, and I'd like to share our vision and our suggestions for growth as an artist.
Well, you're all doing such amazing things for the local community, for New York City at large. I want to end with one fun question, which I'm sure all of our viewers would love to hear from you. I'm coming to the South Bronx for a day. Where do I go? What do each of you recommend? Restaurant, a park, a shop, a museum? What's your go-to neighborhood spot? Jerome, you want to start?
The pressure. Oh, okay. First of all, you have to go to Bronx Native. That's a total plug. You know, that's where I think you should go, mainly just to get an understanding of where we're headed next, right? Then you have an idea of where you can go within this area. So you can go to the Lit Bar. You can go to, I love this new spot called Hudson. It's actually on Alexander, where my store used to be. It's so yummy. And it's a great steakhouse. So, and then, you know, you can cruise through all the streets, because right now everyone is out and the streets are beautiful. The blossoms are blossoming, right? Just kind of discover the Bronx by walking through it. Forget the, you know, don't forget, but you know, you can always go to the botanical gardens, but you can always get to know, you know, the actual gardens that's local within the different communities here in the Bronx. So take a nice walking tour. Start with Bronx Native. Go to Hudson.
You're ready.
And then walk it off.
You're ready.
Amaurys, where are we going around Bronx Native after we stop?
Yeah. So of course, you know, the Mott Haven section, that 2-block radius right there. definitely check out all the businesses on there, from Bronx Native, My Haven Bar, Bistro, Hip Hop Restaurant, C-Tay, you know, the Lip Bar, the only bookstore in the Bronx. There's a bunch of great businesses, you know, all owned by mostly Bronx natives, you know, our people, and it's a beautiful thing. If you want to see just true raw BX energy, you know, untamed, go on a hot summer day, go to Fordham Road or 3rd Ave, the Hub, one of those, and you will see true untapped, just raw energy, everything. And I love going to these, you know, to the Hub and to Fordham, to these high populated, high energy, because that is what inspires Bronx Native. That is what inspires everything we do. So definitely go out there, check out the people, eat the food, go shopping, and just have a good time. You already know.
And Jake, we'll end with you.
Cool. Okay, so I would say get on the train, sneak on up past Mott Haven, one stop, and just go to the Yankee Stadium, which I think is like 160th. There's a little park called Joyce Kilmer Park. And if you go to the tip of the park, there's this beautiful fountain. And from there, you can see Supreme Court House building, which is arguably the most understated building in New York. And you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. And then to your right, you're gonna see Yankee Stadium. And then from there, you're gonna take a walk down Grand Concourse, and you're gonna get lunch at Hudson Smokehouse, which is insane. And then you're gonna buy a t-shirt at Amaurys shop. And you might say hi to Lamar on the street, I don't know.
Let's go.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today for our In the Neighborhood chat. I loved talking about the South Bronx with you. Everyone who's watching, be sure to visit our self-guided journey platform to explore more amazing design spaces in the South Bronx, and also visit Southwest Brooklyn, Soho and Tribeca, St. George, and Long Island City. We hope you're enjoying Design Days and finding time to join many of the events that are taking place as part of this program. And finally, a special thank you to SANDOW Design Group for airing these In the Neighborhood chats on DesignTV. See you next time.